All right, why don't we kick things off here? So again, good morning, good afternoon, depending on which time zone you're in. Welcome to the CERDAC webinar on tackling the top 10 maintenance issues in manufacturing. I want to thank you for joining me today. Also, as a friendly public service announcement, we do have the presidential debate on tonight, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. So maybe this is a good warm up for that tonight. I want to cover a few logistics before we get going. One is we will have a few poll questions throughout the presentation. I encourage you to participate in those. We'll be sharing the results live from that poll. And secondly, everybody is muted here, and so that if you have questions that come up during the presentation, please enter them through the Q&A icon, either during the presentation or at the end, and we'll address them at the end. My name's Sam Closter, and I'm the Vice President of Sales for CERDAC. Also have to share, I'm actually a recovering flight control engineer for missiles and airplanes who spent a decade with Lockheed Martin, and I've been over in the software space for over 2 decades. I joined Simco about 8 years ago, and I've worked with hundreds of companies on CERDAC deployments to solve some of their most challenging problems on the production floor, along with supporting their audits. Recently, actually, I just received a panic call from a customer who is partaking in a DEKRA audit, one of their sites in Switzerland. Happy to say they passed the audit, but the team needed proof of data backup, which we were able to provide. These types of panic calls are not uncommon during a high-pressure audit, and we regularly support customers through our professional services team. I'll be walking through our survey approach and the findings from the survey. Then we'll jump into how companies have overcome these top 10 maintenance challenges. And finally, we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. The significance of efficient maintenance cannot be overstated. It plays a pivotal role in maintaining operational effectiveness, reducing manufacturing downtime, and meeting regulatory requirements. The material I'm presenting today was generated out of an industry survey conducted earlier this year with hundreds of maintenance professionals to gain insights into their top 10 challenges they're facing. The most pressing issues and challenges surrounding maintenance and their environments were identified, along with the activities that they're taking to overcome these challenges. So I hope through this, you may be able to self-assess your program and identify some potential solutions that are being implemented by your peers. All right, let's get into the results. The number one challenge reported is reducing maintenance costs, with 44% of respondents selecting this one. This is actually closely followed with the next 5, with 30% or more people saying that their challenges in terms of attracting and retaining personnel, the part acquisition process, dealing with aging equipment systems, equipment downtime, and environmental responsibility really wraps up these top 6 here that 30% or more responded to. So let's bring up our first survey question here. All right, so of the top 5 challenges that we're listing here, which one are you facing the most in 2024? You can select one of them there. And we'll give you guys about 15 seconds to respond here before we share the results. All right, hopefully we'll get enough time there. All right. Aging equipment looks like number 1 with 39% responding there. Followed double 2 at 22% maintenance costs, attracting and retaining personnel, and then parts acquisition costs. Interesting. So aging equipment, which we had in this case, number 4, is actually number 1 with this audience by just a little bit. Great feedback. All right. So let's talk about the top challenge here. So number 1 challenge identified, reducing maintenance cost. To overcome this challenge, 56% of the participants reported implementing a preventive maintenance program. Tell you the truth, that actually surprised me at first, but when I think about how many people I speak with who are using paper and or Excel to manage their program, I can understand the results. The CERDAC research tip I want to bring up is if you have a preventive maintenance program in place, you can fine tune the recurring schedules to reduce costs. I worked with a biotech company actually in South San Francisco, and when we first started, they wanted to keep track of daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly PMs. Might ring a bell to some of you. After a few months of tracking all this data, they actually reviewed it, and it turns out they weren't using their equipment enough to justify the daily maintenance. And so we just implemented, starting with that weekly program and schedule, and basically reduced, almost 5x the amount of services that they were doing. So let's bring up a next survey question. Do you currently have a preventive maintenance program in place? Simple yes or no here. All right, Kim, the survey says 78%. Okay. So 22%, they don't have one or did not answer the question, but so a good bit of you have a preventive maintenance program in place, which is fantastic. All right, let's go on to challenge number 2 here. Second challenge identified is attracting and retaining personnel. On the maintenance side, really your people are your biggest asset to keep production line up and running. If you have a high amount of turnover, not only does that leave you shorthanded, which drives your overtime, but it takes a tremendous amount of energy just spent recruiting and training those new people. This is clear as 58% of the people reported improving recruiting and retention. To keep people around, it's key to invest in employee training, certification programs, right, and career advancement as a pathway to nurture those talents and increase and enhance job satisfaction. What we find, is training, their job just isn't enough. They want to know that you care about them and they care about their career and their advancement to help. Third challenge here is how to improve supply chain processes for part acquisition. It's amazing with companies like Amazon or McMaster-Carr, it's hard to believe that some archaic ordering processes that I've seen in companies. So it actually really didn't surprise me that adding inventory backup was the #1 way people are solving these challenges. It also tells me that it is more cost effective in their minds to have the extra parts on hand compared to the cost of production downtime. I was working with a medical device manufacturer over in Clamberis. When I got there, they told me actually their production had been down for a week because they had a few $100 part that just happened to not be available. And I'm sure you have your own stories of hundreds of thousands of lost production dollars because parts were not on site. I mean, even if you can get them the next day, it's still costly to have downtime. What I see is maintenance teams is having an inventory management system, which is connected or part of their CMMS to optimize their part level, but more importantly, to forecast which parts they're going to need based on their maintenance cycles. A few stories here. Siemens Healthineers, we work with them. We implemented our CERDAC CMMS across their laboratory diagnostics division. They calculated they saved $3 million annually through just time saved of automating their entire process. In addition, I've been working with Myriad since about 2018. They saw a 235% ROI in their first year of implementing CERDAC. Mainly by reducing the amount of cycles they were doing on their services or on their equipment. Finally, working with Wuxi, they saved nearly 150K annually at a single site. One of my favorite quotes for them was before they implemented CERDAC, it was like driving a car by looking in the rearview mirror. Now they have that forecasting capability and they have a much better handle on their program. The fourth challenge is dealing with aging equipment and systems. To overcome aging equipment, the first thing customers are doing here is increasing preventive maintenance. I mean, it's like you had an old Chevy, right? You want to keep your baby around. So you're going to do a lot more things like continuously increasing and do more frequent oil changes. In addition, people are investing in improving technology and investing in new equipment. Our CERDAC research tip here is directly tied to the top answer, is tailor your PM schedules and services based on the age of your equipment. The fifth challenge is reducing equipment downtime. And I think this is really at the heart of it. And you can see that by the mixed solutions people are using to overcome this, right? The number one is increasing preventive maintenance. Number two is improving training. And number three is just better tracking. What I think here is interesting is while we see predictive maintenance mentioned, it was also mentioned in actually challenge number one if we had gone down. Here it reaches top four. I also find it interesting that 5 and 6 both have to do with part inventory. And I would agree and echo that having an adequate level of inventory is key to reducing your equipment downtime. Let's bring up our next survey question. So have you experienced production downtime due to missing parts? Give you a few more seconds to answer there. Any downtime due to missing parts? All right, what does the survey say? Wow, 71%. Yes, they've had production downtime due to missing parts. That's actually higher than I expected. So that's some really interesting data there. And 29% no. Great feedback, real time here. Sounds like my experience is not uncommon when seeing these results here. So challenge number 6 here, improving sustainability and environmental responsibility. Top 2 steps that people are taking here to improve energy efficiency and doing more preventive maintenance, with 52% of the respondents citing both of these. I worked with a pharmaceutical company in Boston area who was systematically approaching this problem. Actually, from an energy saving standpoint, the first thing they did was put motion light on their conference rooms. And I'm sure a number of you have done that also. But what they found is it only goes so far, right, before it plateaus. The next thing you have to do is really get into replacing old equipment. And that's exactly what they did. They started systematically changing out their old freezer models to improve energy efficiency. This goes directly into the research tip here from CERDAC, which is integrating sustainable maintenance practices into your facilities, like energy efficient equipment upgrades, waste reduction initiatives, and eco-friendly lubricants are a great way to minimize environmental impact. I have another client, actually a medical device client in the LA area, and they keep track of all their power bills, water bills, electric in CERDAC, because they have to report their ESG directly to the CFO. And previously, they were keeping track of all this in Excel. They were creating, and what we did was create actually a custom cloud to manage everything in their CERDAC platform. So now the CFO actually goes directly to the facility team for this data to present annually in their reports. Let's bring up the next survey question here, which is your company currently following ESG practices? Whether you have to report it or if you're just following them, are you following those ESG practices? All right, let's see what the results say, Kim. All right, pretty close, 2/3, 1/3 about. All right, that's we must have a number of public companies on the here attending the webinar. That's a key thing that they push. All right. Challenge number 7 here. Next challenge. Improving task and work order scheduling. The top two answers here support streamlining and automating. Uncovering the most highly used manual processes and focusing on streamlining these efforts first. This is obviously going to give us your biggest bang for the buck. The second is about implementing a CMMS to automate your process and recurring services. I find when you have a CMMS, it's easy then to dedicate a resource to specifically manage the work orders. And that's really the third one there, right? What I have customers do, and I'm sure you experience, is you can route all of those work order requests directly to a single person. They then review it and they assign the management of those out to the team. Also, per our CERDAC research tip here, if you have a CMMS, it's easy to forecast upcoming preventive maintenance and calibration tasks, and you can align that with your production schedules. This obviously allows you to minimize any production time as you're doing the services while the line's already down. Next challenge is improving inefficient maintenance processes. This is being addressed by teams through investing in maintenance employee training and regularly reviewing and updating equipment. When I speak with customers, they've routinely implemented a continuous improvement process. Our CERDAC research tip directly jumps into this takes this a step further by actually encouraging maintenance teams to participate in the CI process through recognition and rewards. At CERDAC, we believe in CI programs, and so much that we actually have here 2/3 of our employees are achieved a Lean Six Sigma certification of some sort. The other thing we see here is 44% of our survey respondents also list deploying new technologies as one of their solutions to overcoming and improving maintenance processes. Let's bring up our next survey question, which is, which technologies are you currently using to improve efficiency? So a few choices there. Probably should have added something like predictive maintenance, but let's see what the survey results say here. All right. So other CMMS, actually Excel spreadsheet. So that's the top one. 50% are using Excel there, followed by another CMMS. And then we got a tie with paper and pen and CERDAC CMMS. So it's great to see we actually have some existing customers on the phone here. Thanks, Kim. Right. Next challenge is improving regulatory compliance. This is being addressed by the teams through increased workforce training, along with improved workforce awareness and documentation. It's funny, I walked into one medical device company to help them digitize their processes, and I couldn't believe the amount of paper they were storing. I walked in, they actually had 2 6-foot-tall bookshelves filled with binders, and what they were doing is storing their paper certificates, their fulfilled maintenance requests. So I asked them if this was all the paper, and they said, actually, no, this is just for this year. Then they brought me to a room which has filing cabinets. They stored 5 years of history in those filing cabinets. And at the end of every year, they would take the paper out of the binders, they load it into the filing cabinets, and then, of course, they would take that 5th year of documentation out and actually ship that off to Iron Mountain, where they stored it for another 25 years because they had a 30-year life of their product. They were spending 6 figures on document storage just for regulatory compliance. So our CERDAC research tip is to centralize documentation of regulatory requirements, certifications, and audit reports to facilitate that easy access and retrieval during those audit inspections. And clearly you can take this a step further if you've digitized it. It just makes storage and retrieval so much simpler. Few more stories. Recently started working with Scribe Therapeutics to digitize their maintenance and calibration documentation with CERDAC. Judy's our Director of Professional Services and Customer Support. And as you can see by the comment, the Scribe team really enjoys working with them. I've also been working at PetNet since I started with Simco 8 years ago. They have a really interesting reason for purchasing Surdac. The industry regulations were actually changing on them, which drove them to look for a new system. PetNet makes a radioactive dye that goes into the body prior to a PET scan. And what they actually had to do was prove that their pharmacist certifications were current prior to making product every morning. And so PetNet uses Surdac to track employee certification along with maintenance and other service events. Finally, Corey Electronics, near and dear to my heart, they manufacture airplane cockpit instrument panels. And when they first started speaking with them, they didn't know where a lot of their equipment was across multiple sites. Nobody had a centralized view of where all their equipment is. So after implementing Surdac, now they track all their equipment in Surdac. They log all the movements of that. And at the central level, they can have a single view of all their equipment globally. The last challenge reported here is improving record keeping and documentation. The top responses here, the survey includes automating backup of the data and conducting regular reviews and audits of your records to ensure the team is following the processes. This is actually followed by establishing clear SOPs for the team to follow. So our Surdac expert tip here is if you can transition from a paper-based system to a digital documentation system, you're going to have more efficient storage, retrieval, and sharing of that documentation. So let's bring up our last survey question. Do you still store maintenance and compliance records in binders or filing cabinets, as I've mentioned in previous stories? Just curious here. All right, let's see what the survey says. Okay, about 1/3 or so, yes, got maintenance. We get records in binders, filing cabinets, and about 2/3 look like they've digitized. 60-40 here. That's great results. All right. That concludes the top 10 reasons that people, the challenges they have with maintenance. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation on the state of maintenance in manufacturing. You can download the full report off our Surdac website under resources. Here's a little demographic information on our respondents, and there's more details in the full report. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to taking some questions. So with that, Kim, would you mind reading off what questions you're getting from people here?
Yeah, sure, of course. So first question is, how often does Surdac perform surveys?
Great question. We conduct about 2 to 3 research surveys a quarter. And I find it interesting because it allows you guys obviously to see what your peers are doing in this space.
Great. And then another question, Sam, is what industries does Surdac focus on?
Oh, great question. Okay, so Surdac really focuses on a few industries. One, life sciences. So anybody in medical device, pharmaceutical, biotech, Surdac was really built from the ground up to support that industry. On top of that, aerospace and defense, we got a number of aerospace and defense customers that are leveraging the software. And third, I would add in technology manufacturing industry. Those 3 are really the ones we serve the most.
Thanks, Sam. That looks like all the questions that we have for right now. I think we can definitely make ourselves available for any other questions. If people want to reach out to us, that's fine. Oh, I did.
Great.
So one of the questions is asking about how to get a copy of the research, and we can definitely share that link with you via email.
Fantastic. We'll share that. And then also it is available on our website, CERDAC.com, under the resource section. You'll see the full ebook there, along with a number of other ebooks and white papers that we've done.
Great, thanks. And then just to mention, we do have another upcoming webinar that's going to be promoted next week. It's around the 9 best practices for preventive maintenance, just in case you're interested in that. That will be on our website. It currently is underneath resources as well.
Great. Well, Kim, thank you so much. And thank you for attending. Really enjoyed walking through the survey results with you. And don't hesitate to reach out if you got any initial questions about this survey, the research, or how we might be able to support your team with pen and paper or other processes that you want to digitize.